Let's break down these matchups. KC Joyner's with us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Wildcard weekend, kind of a stinker, KC, as all four games pretty much lopsided matchups. No real compelling matchups in the wildcard weekend.
Yeah, we kind of thought going into this game it was going to be more exciting weekends for pro football this year, and it just wasn't. There wasn't any matchups that really stayed. And once the Dolphins fell behind, it looked like they were going to come back. There once they couldn't come back in the second quarter. That like it was the only game that looked like it might have some excitement to it, or the Giants maybe the halftime and things. But the second half of all these games, they're snoozers.
Yeah, let's look back at Houston and Oakland and find out what happened. I mean, Connor Cook was horrible, 18 of 45 in the game. For them to let him throw 45 times, you wonder what they were thinking. But realistically, he just seemed like he was completely ill-prepared to play at a game with that magnitude.
Yeah, the ESPN has the metric total QBR. It measures a quarterback's performance they have it on a 0 to 100 scale. So if you do 100, you played as well as anybody's played in quarter. This metric, if it's 0, you played as badly. He had a total QBR of 8.3 in this game and 1.1 on vertical passes. I mean, it wasn't just bad; it was atrociously bad. They literally, the way he played, Oakland had no chance of winning that game. If you get a quarterback who plays that badly, you have almost no chance of winning a game.
What about on the other side, Brock Osweiler? He finally looked like the guy, maybe not $72 million worth, but a competent player, threw for one, ran for another. They're going to go with him again. What'd you see from Osweiler?
I liked what I saw, but remember that Oakland came into the game ranked last in the league in yards allowed per play. So keeping that in mind, Osweiler did do well on vertical passes. He averaged 14.5 yards per attempt on vertical passes, had a 98 total QBR. So, and he's been atrocious in that category, probably the worst vertical passer in the league. So it just shows that if he plays a really bad defense, Brock Osweiler can put up good numbers in vertical passing. But I don't know how that's going to portend in the future because there aren't any defenses like that left in the AFC.
Good sign if you're a Texans fan. DeAndre Hopkins seemed to be more involved than he has been with Osweiler in the past. Yeah,
you want to see Nuke catching a lot of passes. You want to see him getting more involved in the offense. You are glad that he did what he did. You are glad that he got involved, and he only had 67 yards receiving, and he had 5 catches and things. I mean, it was more involved than he has been, but that's a relative term as well. So it's one of those where when you've got Nuke, you have to be able to throw vertical passes to him regardless of what defenses or what defense you go up against because he's got that kind of talent. So I like what I saw, but again, wondering if the Raiders' defense had more to do with Nuke looking better than Osweiler stepping up.
What you think of the Texans on defense? I mean, if they're going to somehow upset New England, it's going to be from that unit, right?
Yeah, you'd think if they're going to do it. The only thing is, though, is that their pass rush, again, you talk 45 passes and things. Oakland had control, according to ESPN stats information, Oakland controlled the line of scrimmage of pass plays 46.8% of the time. It was 4th out of the 8 playoff teams this weekend. So Houston's pass rush was good, but I don't, I'd like to see some improvement out of them because the thing is you take if you go in there and you're just getting a mid-level pass rush against Tom Brady, you're not going to win that game. So as good as they played in some ways, if they can improve their pass rush, they're going to have trouble beating Bengals.
Casey, other than Cook, what was disappointing about the Raiders' performance? They seemed a little bit disinterested at times, like they knew with Cook that they had no shot.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. It did seem like on both sides of the ball that they did not. They really thought, hey, we're going to third-string quarterback. We can't win this game. And the thing is when Cook was inaccurate early on, I think that was really the sign to say, okay, is he going to be able to step up and make a few plays and things? And you could tell early on that he just wasn't going to be a good enough percentage player. And it's a bad. You don't want to really knock the Raiders for what happened in that game because if any team comes in with a third-string quarterback, they might do the same thing. But to see them play as badly as they did, and to see them last couple of games of the season, to see after the quarterback went down how badly they played. It says something because if you can remember Raiders of the olden days, they would step up for the backup quarterback, and this team did.
In your mind, does Oakland win that game with Carr?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hands down, they win that game with Carr because as good. Everybody talks about how great Houston's defense is. I think they're a very good defense, but I don't think they're a great defense. And I think it could have done more in the running game. I think it could have hit more vertical passes. I think that it would have put a whole lot more pressure on Osweiler to have to make more plays instead of just being able to pick his shots on making plays. And then if that happens, I think it would have been bad for Houston. So, yeah, if Carr's there, they win that game.
So what does Oakland need in your mind then to improve on in order to take the next step now?
I think they need to. I'm fond of talking about old school Raiders, and I think they need to do like the old school Raiders did and develop a really good second string quarterback, because it says something that if the team does not believe they can win and their quarterback is out, it's a bad sign. They need to get somebody out there who can be somebody who they can say, okay, we can put him out there and we can win games with this quarterback. I think they maybe they don't need a Tony Romo or somebody of that nature, need that kind of situation. But even if they had somebody, if they could believe in their backup quarterback, with the Patriots bleeding Garoppolo and he was in there for Brady, I think the Raiders could still be playing today, but they don't right now. So I think it's one of the big things they need to do is find a better backup quarterback.
Ironic that you mentioned Romo, because what knocked the Cowboys out the last couple of years, they had no backup for Romo, and that kind of knocked them out of their season was horrible last year. They finally got not only a backup, someone to supplant Romo, so that helped the Cowboys, and obviously it hurt the Raiders this year. They go to their third quarterback card. Do you think they win with McGloin?
Yeah, I think they'd have a 50-50 shot of, maybe 60-40 shot of winning with McGloin. I think it would have been a lot better. When you have Cook in there, you maybe 1 in 10 chance because he's just that bad. But you have McGloin out there, I think it jumps it up to where at least it's a 50-50 chance if he's healthy. I mean, if he's healthy and playing to the level he's played in the past, because he's always put up. You look at his metrics, and they're mid-tier. They're not great, but they're not terrible. On Cook, he's awful. He was as inaccurate as we talked about he might be last weekend. If you've got a quarterback who's playing that badly against a really good defense, you're not going to win. And McGloin is just a lot more accurate.
He was awful. 45 pass attempts. What were they thinking? All right, Sports Bash KC Joyner with us here. Let's go to the Saturday night game. And I never thought I thought there was some bad officiating. I thought Detroit got hosed on a couple of things. But even with the bad calls, I never felt Detroit was in that game. Like, I didn't feel like they were knocking on the door for an upset in Seattle.
Yeah, we talked last week about the Detroit needed to try to turn this game into a shootout, to try and get into a high-scoring game was their approach, or what should have been their approach, because Seattle's missing. They had Terrell and Thomas and things, and they had some trouble in their secondary. And you can go after Jeremy Lance. So there are a couple of places where it's okay, Detroit can do that. But Matthew Stafford, I think there were the 8 quarterbacks this weekend. 6 of the quarterbacks, when it comes to that vertical total QBR I was talking about earlier, 6 of them had a vertical total QBR of 89 or higher. Those are really good numbers in vertical passing. Cook had the aforementioned 1.1. Stafford is at 19.3 in vertical total QBR. Which means he's about the 19th percentile when it comes to vertical passing. He just had a horrible day, and look, the matchups are going from player to player, saying, okay, well, Sherman, he's really good, and Shed's solid, and they've got some players, but you look at the matchup and said, Detroit has some quality matchups here, and it just wasn't happening. And I think it had to do with Stafford's finger, too. I mean, because as they were talking during the game, his metrics before and after he got hurt were dramatically different. I think a healthy Stafford probably has a much better chance in that game.
Yeah, we'll get into the Lions side, but you look at Seattle now, because this is a team that scored 3 points against the Rams, 6 points against Arizona, 5 points against Tampa Bay. They've been inconsistent on offense, but how much did getting Rawls back and really going full go with him change what they did on offense?
Yeah, Rawls is a significant difference maker. And not only that, they had a very good run blocking in this game. Rawls averaged 3.3 yards per carry before the defense made first contact, and that's a huge number. It's 1.7 is the league average, or actually 1.8 for the wild card round. So he averaged nearly twice as many yards per carry before he even got good defense, or the defense made contact, and he get 2.7 yards after they made contact. So mind you, Detroit's run defense has not been that good this year, so you got to take that into account. But he's a bruiser and a guy who can mash through defenses, and it's a big plus. That's why Russell Wilson could do so on this vertical passing too, because Russell Wilson had a perfect total QBR. He was 5 for 6, 115 yards and a touchdown on vertical passes. So he didn't have to throw that many vertical passes, but when he did, it was really deadly. So it's a combination. If they can power run and throw vertical, that's scary for the rest of the NFC teams.
Casey, Mike mentions Rawls. I want to ask you about Richardson and what he added to the Seattle offense.
An Odell Beckham-like ability to catch passes. You look at Richardson's metrics in college; he was you can see why they drafted him. He's a good receiver, and he offers. I think it's one of those where he makes these great plays. I don't think you can count on that from him for every game. But Curse is not very good, and they really needed an upgrade outside of Baldwin. And if you can get Richardson to play close to the level that he played in this game, just close to it, now you've got a two-headed wide receiver combination that teams have to fear, and you've got Graham out there. So now it's suddenly, okay, well, you've got Rawls, you've got Baldwin, now if Richardson steps up, and you've got Graham, and you've got Wilson. That's pretty scary if you're Atlanta.
And just to acknowledge the running game, since I don't want to totally disrespect the running game, they might have C.J. Prosise back. What about that possibility if they get him back? What would he add to the Seattle attack?
Now you got to worry about Thunder and Lightning because Prosise is a speed back and things. You could do things with him. What he does, I think, is if you're going to go to a passing attack, if you want to go to a hurry-up attack, you can put him back there and know that you have now a guy who does better in space than Rawls. Rawls does well enough in space. If you Prosise out there in space, you can save Rawls for the power rushing plays. And now if Prosise is out in space, they can attack a defense that way. So now it's, okay, if we have to go to a fast-paced mode, if Seattle can make – or if Atlanta can make Seattle go to a fast-paced mode and have to be in pass-first situations, finally we can put Prosise out there and we still have a running threat and a guy who can work well in space. So it's a huge difference maker.
How about their defense? This isn't the same Seattle defense, right? I mean, no Thomas. How are they getting by? Now another round deeper in the playoffs. Did you like what you saw from them on defense, or was it just that the Lions? You mentioned the injury to Stafford. They don't have a great running game. No,
they have a great running game. Although Seattle did put pass rush pressure, they did control the line of scrimmage. 58.4% of the plays. It was tied for second in the wild card round. So in other words, they got a lot of pressure on. They were able to get pressure on Stafford and in that passing game. And in Atlanta, I think that's going to be a key to stopping Atlanta because Atlanta is such a fast-paced mode that they're going to have to get some pass rush pressure. They're going to have to ball hawk and make some plays. And I think that's the thing. When you look at what they did in coverage, they were able to shut down vertical passes. And Atlanta's kind of we'll talk about more later this week, I'm sure, but Atlanta's kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to vertical passes. They got Jones and everybody else is really a step back. So it's one of those things where Seattle, the way that they played stopping vertical passes, I think it bodes well for what they could do in the future because that's kind of what they're going to need to do against any of these other teams in the NFC.
Casey, how about the Lions? Are they moving in the right direction? I don't think too many people believed in them entering this season. And will Jim Caldwell be back?
I would expect Caldwell to be back. I mean, how many teams are going to go to Seattle and win that game? Not many. Even with Seattle's injuries and things, it's a really tough place to play with them now. 10-game winning streak at home in the playoffs, so it is a very tough place to play. So you can't really hold that against him, but it is one of those situations where you say, okay, I keep looking at them going, all right, they don't have a great running game. The passing game is very good, but not great. I never bought into Stafford as the MVP. I look at their defense, okay, I know they have some injuries, but their secondary is not that good. I don't see this great team. So thinking right now, you're looking at them going, they've built a wild card caliber team. And are they going forward from there? I don't know that they are. And I think that the Lions ownership right now is not going to be happy with having just a wild card caliber team. I think they want more. So if the Lions can't prove that they could take that next step, yeah, they're going to make changes.
Let's go to the Sunday games. Pittsburgh gets off to a fast start. Miami has their shot. Again, I never felt Miami was really a legit threat in this game. Pittsburgh just seems so poised to really, make their statement with these three Bs, as they're called, kind of, first time they've played a playoff game together. The Pittsburgh offense seems like a handful, and you wonder if, you can win with those three guys, 3 straight weeks in a row. You're going to have to score a lot of points. Their defense is okay. They played pretty well. But I thought Miami was just in over their head.
They were, but the thing that troubles me about Pittsburgh is, okay, they go out to the passing game, and mind you, Miami's secondary was just terribly overmatched. I mean, they had 2 backup safeties, 1 backup corner. The corners they have out there really weren't good anyway. Even if you've got all their starters out there at corner, they're not very good. So, and Pittsburgh got out to that big lead, and then they started trying to run the ball. But I got the sense, looking at Pittsburgh, they do this all the time. Steelers fans, we were talking on Twitter and things, they just pull their hair out. The Steelers will get ahead, and then they'll just start to coast. You won't see them play at the same level. They'll start to I don't want to say slack out, but they'll take their foot off the pedal and start to go slower on things. And when the Dolphins are driving toward the end of the second quarter, it was the thought of, oh, wow, if the Dolphins come and score here, once you take your foot off that floor, it's hard to get it back there. It's hard to turn that back on again. So the Steelers got lucky and got not lucky. They made a couple of big plays, and they got some turnovers and things to turn things around. But if they don't get those turnovers, if they don't make those plays, I don't know that Miami doesn't give them a much bigger scare than they did. And Pittsburgh can't take that approach against Kansas City or New England or anywhere else in the playoffs, because if they do it against those teams, they'll lose.
Who needs to have a bigger playoff run for the Steelers to win, Bell or Brown?
I'd say Bell, because you've seen times this year where the Steelers haven't gone to Brown as much, and I'm thinking forward to him, but looking at the matchup this week and going, okay, well, Peters can hold Brown more in check. I don't think that Brown's going to have this dominant game, and you think that the Patriots, they're going to have a game plan. They'll probably stop Bell first, but you've got guys who can slow Brown down too. But I think if they get Bell going and he does what he does, I think it opens up everything else for the rest of their offense. And I think Bell can make the other receivers and the other pass catchers great, whereas if Brown is having a good game, I don't know that it helps the rest of the offense quite as much.
Had to be impressed with the D, though, shutting down Ajayi. He went for over 200 yards on them the last time they played. So, I mean, for a team that's not known for their defense, they played pretty well defensively.
Yeah, and they've been playing a lot better of late. Since Week 7, they lead the league in sacks. I think they had 4 yesterday, so they still got a pass rush. And that's going to be a big plus for them during the playoffs. They've been very good at stopping the run. And my good blocking rate metric over the last portion of the season, they've been very good at keeping teams from getting good blocking. And even when they do get good blocking, they don't get good big breakaway plays, because that's been a big part of their problem, is that when the other teams got good blocking, they didn't hold to this 7 and 8 yard games. They're giving it 20 and 30 yard games. And you can't be allowing, you've got to have control of the running game when you're going to face Kansas City and New England, because even though New England's got a great vertical passing game, you cannot let, if they were to get to him, you can't let Blunt go. You can't just have a bad running defense against Blunt, because he'll destroy you.
Casey, so what's your takeaway about Miami? Adam Gase in his first year, a team on the rise, or were they a one-hit wonder?
One-hit wonder for the moment. If you give them more talent on defense, I think they'll get a lot for them. Plus, again, backup quarterback. So, and more, mind you, we talked about this, the Raiders. If the Raiders had had Matt Moore at quarterback, they might win that game. So they've got a good backup quarterback. They've got the makings of a good offense. I think they need a lot more defensive talent. I don't think they're anywhere near as good on defense as some think they are. They need a huge upgrade there. But if they can get talent on defense, they can go from being where they are now, where they can, I don't know if they'll contend for the division title until Brady takes a step back, but I think they can be have this kind of playoff scare next year and get to the division a lot, maybe.
Do they win that game with Tannehill?
I don't think so, because if they had Tannehill, I don't think Pittsburgh lets up off the foot off the floor. I think they'd be a little more motivated to keep playing the full game. But Pittsburgh is motivated to play that full game and doesn't let up. I don't think Miami's is ever near as close as it is. I think the reason it was close is Pittsburgh let up.
All right, the final game, Green Bay 38-13 over the Giants. You can go a lot of ways in this one. I surmise that Aaron Rodgers was just that good that day. You weren't beating him. That was one of those days where Rodgers was just not going to lose.
I would agree with that. And the Giants, as good as they are in the secondary, they do. It's one of those things where people. You want to rate matchups properly. You want to say, okay, well, this cornerback can stop this wide receiver and things. But really, if an offense is on its game, you can play as good at cornerback as you want. If you've got a really good quarterback or really good receivers, you're still going to complete the passes. And I think that's what we saw yesterday, is that as good as the Giants were personnel-wise, when you've got a quarterback playing at the level that Rodgers started to play at, and he's hitting the passes that he's hitting, and you've got Eli Apple, by the way, barely jumping maybe 6 inches in the air to try to knock down the Hail Mary pass. If he goes full out for it, he knocks that pass down and they don't score. But no, he just has to take the play off, and there you go. So you combine some of those factors, and you're not going to stop Aaron Rodgers. Yeah,
and the Giants were a team that played very good defense for the entire season. This was a team that was best defense in the league entering the playoffs here. They were horrible defensively last year, but they never could get the offense going. But how disappointed was it, the fact that their defense didn't play well? I mean, when you looked at their defensive unit, what did you think about the game plan that they came forward with?
I think they had the right game plan at first, but I think they kept trying to lean on them. We knew if your defense has to go out there and keep stopping, you can play call ways to stop an offense, stop Aaron Rodgers for a time. But if you have to go out there again and again and again, and your offense isn't keeping you out of the field, and the offense isn't limiting the number of possessions in the game, suddenly the number of play calls that you've made to stop the other team, you run out of tricks, and now you have to go face this guy straight up, and you can't get by on those tricks. I think that's a big thing. I also think that offensively, that the Giants, if they don't take a big step up on offense, this is about as far as they're going to get in the future playoffs, because you can't. As good as their defense was, you can't get by with the kind of offensive performance they had yesterday.
Casey, what
effect? Against the defense they should have destroyed, by the way.
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off. What effect
No.
on Green Bay is there if Jordy Nelson can't play? I guess there's reports that he was hospitalized and has rib issues, but he's not been ruled out yet.
He's by far their best vertical receiver. But the thing about the Packers this year is, and this is the huge plus for Rodgers and why it's so impressive what he's done. In past years, it was all vertical passing. And he'd do a ton of vertical passing. He'd power run the ball. And he'd do some dink and dunks, and he'd do well on short passes. But his metrics of vertical passes were always just elite, either top of the league or darn close. This year, he's had terrible vertical passing numbers for most of the year, but he's found ways to do dink and dunking and do exceptionally well in that area. And usually dinking and dunking won't give you enough of an offense to win. Usually there's a limit to it. But he's found a way to hit a lot of big plays out of the short passing game and then hit enough vertical passing plays to be able to get their offense going. So it's one of those things where not having Nelson there is a big problem, but I don't think it's as big of a problem as it would have been in past years if he hadn't mastered what he's doing on short passes.
Yeah, and you look at also Green Bay defensively. I thought they were horrible for a 4-week stretch there. I remember when they played the Eagles, talking to Rob Domofsky out there from the NFL Nation that covers the Packers for you guys, talking about how bad they were defensively. They have really cleaned up the defense really since that Eagle game. Yeah,
the thing they've been bad. They don't have the kind of talent you want at cornerback. They're really still struggling at cornerback. But they're kind of like, I don't want to compare them necessarily to what Belichick did because I think they do different game plans and things, but they're kind of like what the Patriots were with their defenses in past years. If you looked at the Patriots defense from a talent perspective, you'd go, okay, they're not that good. But they didn't put their cornerbacks into too many situations to make them do things that they weren't very good at doing. And so, they end up playing better than what you think they would. And the Packers seem to be doing that to say, we have certain strengths in our defense and our secondary. We have we have great safeties and things. We're going to put a lot more pressure on them, put less pressure on our corners so they don't have to make quite as many plays, and we're going to get a pass rush too. And once you add those factors together, the personnel weaknesses aren't quite as bad. They didn't look quite as bad on Sunday. In fact, they didn't look bad at all. But I think if they can keep doing that, it's one of those things where I think they get a better chance against these teams than they would have played 6-8 weeks ago.
What's as we wrap up for the Giants now, this is a team that missed the playoffs 4 straight seasons. Then all of a sudden they go from the worst defense to one of the best defenses. They win 11 games this year. They seem like a team that next year could be on the outside looking in. Like they seem like they had a really solid year this year. A lot of things went their way, but they're going to need to make some changes on that offense.
Yeah, I think they need to go Perkins as their lead back. I think they need to forget this Jennings experiment that's not working. I think they need to say Perkins is our guy. Probably need another back, too. Maybe have Jennings be the backup or something. They need to do something there. And then the passing game, it's funny. I got to say this. Odell Beckham, everybody gets on him for dropping those passes and things. Odell Beckham ranked 34th out of 45 receivers with 100 or more targets this year in drop percentage. He wasn't always – if he drops one pass per game, it shouldn't be a shock. And according to stats and information, he only dropped 2 passes yesterday. So the idea that he's what lost them that game, mind you, he used to catch that touchdown pass. He used to do that. But the idea that was why they lost that game, no, they didn't lose the game for that reason. They lost the game because their offense is not hitting on all cylinders. And is it Eli Manning stepping back? I don't know that it is, but I got to wonder if maybe he's not going to be quite the quarterback that he was. And if he isn't quite what he used to be, I think the formula for our great defense and quarterback leading the way, I wonder if that's going to be enough.
All right, good breakdowns from KC Joyner here. We will preview the matchups with KC on Friday's show. How about, real quick, your thoughts, Doug Marrone, the new coach in Jacksonville. Do you like that pairing with Blake Bortles?
They've got Jacksonville was a team this year, if you look at them talent-wise, no team played farther below its talent level than Jacksonville. That's where they were. He's a good fit for what they want to do defensively. He's a good fit for what they want to do offensively. As far as getting a power game with vertical passing and things, I think that he can make them a lot better. I'm not sure that he's the long-term answer or is going to get them to where they need to be, but I think he's the kind of coach who can at least get them to play closer to their, I think they have 10-6 talent. I think he can get them close to that level. And if he can do that, that's a huge plus for them.
KC Joyner back on Friday. We're breaking it all down. I can't wait to break this matchup. I think this division round really has some good matchups here. So we'll look forward to that on Friday's show. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, man.